On October 10, 1997, the Etowah County Drug Task Force went to a house in Rainbow City to serve a search warrant. They were met with semi-automatic rifle fire as they knocked on the front door. As the outgunned officers returned fire, Task Force Commander Chris McCurley was killed in the shootout. 4 other Task Force agents were wounded. Rainbow City Sergeant Gary Intrican was the most severely wounded, and his right leg had to be amputated above the knee. He was forced to retire from law enforcement. Ezra Peterson, wounded in the shootout, was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death. He committed suicide in prison. Connie Tazi was convicted of murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. She has served 10 years of a 40-year sentence. A parole hearing for her is scheduled for January 22nd. For the first time since the shootout more than 10 years ago, all of the surviving members of the task force met recently at Sheriff Todd Intrican's office. They talked openly with the Gadsden Times about their memories of that day and how it has affected their lives.
I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I don't know that we've ever all got together and talked about it. Did we? I don't think so. It's, like I say, it's something you want to forget, but it's something you don't want to forget. There's no doubt about it. This group here is formed a bond. I mean, I don't think we can get around each other without thinking about that day. And maybe that's why we've never got together. Maybe we didn't want to. I know I'll never forget it. I think for a long time, I didn't want to see none of these guys. Because when I seen them, it just automatically took you back to that day. I think we all felt uncomfortable around each other for a while because of that. We didn't want to talk about it. And like I said, I don't think we have. I don't think we've ever talked about it. We avoided it. But there's just so many things that happen that will remind you of Chris. Something you'll hear or something. I mean, you talk about a practical joker. Chris was it. And there's just always something that I'll see or see somebody do something that will make me think of him. We'll never forget it. Shouldn't. As bad, as sad as it is sometimes. Like once a year, I know right now I just try to stay by myself. On that particular day, I let it be alone. Funny how you won't even think about it until that day. I mean, the day before, you don't think about it. But then the next day, it's like you're not going to forget this. It just jumps back in your head. Just that quick. But I'm sure it's affected everybody different. But to me, I know I was just tried to avoid these people for a while. Didn't want to get around them because I was afraid I'd have to talk about it. Didn't want to. And this is the most I've ever talked about it, I guess. I've ever talked about it, but to anybody.
Looking back on it, I think what really impacted me terribly bad. It didn't, it changed my life, but it didn't, a lot of worse things could have happened. I'm sure other families would have more affected more. I think about Chris's family, he still had children, a wife, when he left to go to work that morning, everything at his house was fine, his wife, everybody thought everything, they'd be back home for supper that night. And I know Gary's life's changed tremendously. I think about that a whole lot. But as far as my family, it's really affected my
like
family
Chris's
a lot.
parents, it really took a toll on Chris's parents.
My mother was, they'd gotten Chris's mixed up when this happened, and she was picked up at work and brought here, and when she was picked up at work by a deputy. She said, you know, is he dead? And she was told yes. And she was brought here and she said, I believe up here, you know, because they were trying to sort things out. The sheriff, that was before anybody had gotten to the hospital yet. They were trying to figure out what was going on. So my mother said she sat in this office right here, you know, 20 or 30 minutes until my father got here and some more of my family got here, and then they said that got the Chris's mixed up. And then when she found out it wasn't me that had been mixed up, I guess because nobody from the sheriff's department had came back here yet, everybody was still there, they said, no, he's okay, he hasn't even been shot. So then they drove over to the hospital and found out I was fixing to go into surgery, I had been shot. My dad, still to this day, never called me before. Some days I didn't even talk to him every day, but never called me before on my way to work. And regardless what shift I'm on, but now I'm on third shift, my father calls me every single night, about 15 till 10, I'll be on my way to work. He tells me that he loves me, for me to be careful, tells me that every single night that I go to work. Every night he'll call me and tell me that. And I know, you know, it's been 10 years, I know he's thinking every single night before he goes to bed, he's wondering, you know, somebody can knock on my door in the middle of the night and tell me he's been killed or hurt. I know him and my mom both, they think that every night. I know he does, or he wouldn't call me every night.
I heard the shots and I seen the look on PJ's face. I knew it was, so I took off running to the front and I was grabbing my walkie-talkie at the same time. So that's the first call I hadn't made it around front yet. And then the dispatch, Karen, the dispatch, she said she could tell the difference in my voice and knew that I was shot. The second one I called 10-0 again, that officers were down. I didn't tell her I had been shot. I just said,
she asked you though.
Down. Oh, she might.
She asked. I listened to the tape. On your first ones, I hear you holler. You know, you hear 10-0 shots fired. That's your first call, and you tell you're running. Now I'm remembering this from a memory of when I listened to the tape. Then your next call was again 10-0 officers down.
When I called 10-0, her job was to notify everybody. But yeah, our walkie-talkie, which normally never would work out there at that location, she said, I talked with Karen, and afterwards she said it just came through as clear as it could. I know it was hard on my mom and dad, and I don't know what they were being told for so long, and everybody around, so I was, for so long, I made myself be strong through it all for them, and for so, you know, and my kids, and I assured my mom and dad that I was going to be okay, that I was going to make it through it. And then when I'm around these guys, I still, some of them ask me why I don't ever come around and stuff, and it's simply, before I didn't want them to see me having to depend on a chair, a wheelchair to get around, and I still don't. So for so long, I just stayed away from everybody, and I don't like crowds either, and I don't go, I try and stay out of public. If I go out somewhere, I usually go to Birmingham where I can get away from people that know me and stuff, but probably just the last couple of years when I've been able to at least get on my feet and feel a little bit better about myself, I guess I've let myself down a notch and where I don't feel like I have to be strong for, you know, everyone else, and I can, you know, feel like I want to about it. I just made it a point where I tried not to let things bother me, and act like everything was going to be fine, and I was fine with everything, just glad to be here for them. And now enough time has gone by where I don't have to do that, so I just, it's kind of like I got a late start in the healing process.
Kind of like Jimmy, I didn't pick out just this bunch. I didn't want to be around. I didn't want to be around anybody. I thought even when I went back to work, I didn't know how the people were going to take me. How you know. How someone felt. I don't know what they would think. You know. What happened to me, and here I am still alive. I don't know about anybody else. I had a lot of guilt filled me too, because Chris was right beside me. He died and I didn't. And it took a long time. Like I said, I didn't want to be in crowds. I didn't want to go anywhere. I guess the best thing happens when they told me I had to go back to work. I had to get back into society and start doing things, but you know, it's just live one day at a time now. I do, because tomorrow's not promised. I used to. My mama used to tell her grandmother used to say that. You know, tomorrow's not, and I never did understand the meaning of that. After this, things like that go through your mind. You know, why you're still here. I guess that's why I don't like to. Like Jimmy said, I don't like to talk about it much. But, you know, like Jimmy says, you want to think about it, and you don't. And I honestly try not to think about it. But I do. Every year I go back on the 10th. I go back every year. I don't stay. You know, I don't get out. I don't talk to anybody. But I think about Chris. And, you know, what happened. But I don't talk about it around here. And, you know, when I told Todd when I came to work, I think I told him or them, but I didn't want any kind of special treatment. It's just hard to think about it.